Welcome to Economics 232. This is Dr. James Yohe, and today we're going to be talking about monopolistic competition and oligopoly. We won't make it through all of those in this video because I'm going to keep them short. This is Chapter 10 in your textbook. All right. The first thing, these are imperfect form. These are what we call imperfect competition forms, and it's a market structure between the extremes of perfect competition and monopoly. Okay. Now, one thing to remember is we've already done the lower end and the upper end of the scale. Perfect competition, everything's nice, sweet, and wonderful. Everything's efficient. Goods sell at the lowest possible price. The more output is produced than in any other market structure under perfect competition. Goods are produced at the lowest long-run average total cost, and there's no economic profit possible under perfect competition because of free entry and exit. And everything's nice and sweet and wonderful. We have efficiency, we have low prices, we have low costs. At the other end of the scale, the big bad monopoly, they sell at the highest possible price. They produce the least amount of output of any market structure. They do not produce at the lowest possible long-run average total cost, and under under monopoly, monopolists are inefficient. Assets are under-allocated to the production of goods and services produced by a monopolist. Now, these are in between, so they're not as sweet and nice as perfect competition, but they're not as big, bad, mean, and ugly as monopoly. Now, the first thing we have is monopolistic competition. This is the first market structure we look at under imperfect competition. Now here, this is very close to perfect competition. So you get some nice, sweet results, just not the nicest and the sweetest. Now, under monopolistic competition, we have many small sellers, okay, just like we did under perfect competition. Remember, this is monopolistic competition. However, we do not have a homogeneous product like potatoes. Here we have a differentiated product, okay? And that is real or perceived differences among the different suppliers, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we do have the easy entry and exit. Now, how many is many sellers? The many sellers condition is met when each firm is so small relative to the total market that pricing decisions have a negligible effect on the market price. Very similar to what we just saw, similar to what we saw with perfect competition. Now here's where it's different. We have product differentiation, the process of creating real or apparent differences between two goods and services. Now here, those differences could be real, okay? Say laundry soap. Laundry soap is laundry soap. You put it in the washer, it washes your clothes. But each different seller of laundry soap differentiates its product by saying, hey, ours has fabric softener in with the laundry detergent, or ours smells like roses, or ours has OxyClean in it, whatever. It's all the same. It does the same thing. It washes clothes. But each product is slightly differentiated, and those are, to some degree, real differentiations. There can also be apparent differentiations. This is where the products are actually the same, but the differences are maybe perceived through marketing. To give you an example, when I had my first child, she had colic, and my wife told me to go down to the store and buy Milacon. And of course, I am cheap. I always buy store brand, okay, of things. And when she went, she said, "You do not come back to the house with store brand. You buy the name brand. If you don't, I'm going to kill you." So I went to the pharmacy and I couldn't find it, and the pharmacist actually came out to help me. And when he did, he pointed out that here's the Milacon and there's our store brand. I said, "Nope, I got to buy the name brand. My wife will kill me." He said, "No, you don't understand. We get our brand made by Milacon. They make it. It's the same thing in that bottle that there is in the name brand. It's made in the same factories. The only difference is we put our label on it, and they don't put their Milacon label on it. We save on the advertising." So in that case, the differences, and I'm not saying this is in all cases, but in that case, the differences between the Milacon and the store brand were really apparent or perceived. They weren't actually any real difference except for the packaging, which is not why you buy Milacon. So those are examples of differentiated goods. Okay. Now, easy entry and exit means there are low barriers to entry. Entry and exit are not quite as easy as in a perfectly competitive market, but a lot easier than in a monopolistic market. Here, there are small barriers to entry into an industry. One of them could be trademarks or copyrights or patents. Now, it could be a patent or copyright or even a trademark. To give you an example, in gyms, okay, gyms are typically considered to be monopolistic competition. They just closed them, but Gold's Gym, for example, they have a name, okay, and you can't operate as Gold's Gym. You'd have to call it Fred's Gym or Silver Gym or whatever, but you can't use that name, okay? And there are some small barriers to entry. Might be licensing requirements for a barber. Okay. And here's those barriers to entry, is that firms can differentiate themselves from their competitors in ways other than prices. And they do this through non-price competition. A firm competes using advertising, right? Packaging, product development, and better service rather than lower prices. So that is ways in which these firms can prevent other firms from very easily entering the market. So we just say easy entry and exit. Okay. A monopolistically competitive firm is a price maker. A price maker means product differentiation gives the firm some control over its prices. Okay. Now, under monopolistic competition, the firm's demand curve, we have a market supply and demand curve, and then we have each firm's supply and demand curves. The firm's demand curve is less elastic. It's steeper than for a perfectly competitive firm. If you remember, I'm going to go back. If you remember, for a perfectly competitive firm, the firm's demand curve is a horizontal line at the price that firm has to take, and that's the market price. A monopolist has a steep downward sloping demand curve, and that is because the monopolist is a single seller in the market, and the market demand curve or the industry demand curve is the firm's demand curve. So all other things being equal, the same market, with it being organized as a perfectly competitive market, would have a horizontal demand curve at the price that the firm has to take. That same market organized as a monopoly has a steep demand curve. The monopolistic competitive firm faces a downward sloping demand curve. That's what makes it a price maker, but it is much less steep, it's flatter, it's more elastic than the the monopoly curve, but it is less elastic or steeper than the perfectly competitive firms. Okay. Here are some examples of firms that are thought to be in this monopolistic competition model, or at least where this model is used for them. You don't even know what that is. Video rental stores, those are gone. Gas stations. Every firm sells gas station. Each firm differentiates their product with the additives that they put in. It's actually all the same gasoline. All the gasoline, whether it's a Marathon or what used to be Jetpack, a Chevron, a Shell, an Exxon, it doesn't matter what type of gas station you have. All of those stations get their gas from the same pipes. It's not like Exxon has refineries and they pump Exxon gas to Exxon stations only. all the refiners pump into the same pipelines, and the trucks just pull up and fill up out of those pipelines. The differences are the additives. You'll see Texaco puts Tetraline in theirs, and Shell has oxygenated boosters, whatever. It doesn't matter. Those are the only real differences, that and the quality of the tanks that they put them in. And it is generally thought that higher-end gas stations, the big names, typically have inspections and standards of higher quality for the tanks that they put the gas in. Okay, but it's all the same gas. So they differentiate with their additives. Hair salons, grocery stores, they differentiate oftentimes with service. For example, if you go into Publix, somebody jumps on you right away. Hey, can I help you? What can I do for you? Okay, and they charge higher prices for that. If you go to Aldi or Aldi, whatever you want to call it, down there on 431 and George Wallace Drive, right? They make you pay a quarter to use the carts, so you'll bring it back. They don't bring the carts back for you. They don't bag the groceries. You don't get the kind of service you would get at a Publix, but they charge a lot lower prices. So they differentiate on service generally for grocery stores and restaurants. Now, there's a question on how effective advertising is. Okay? And your books here says it's somewhat effective in the short run, but less effective in the long run. Okay? That in the short run, advertising does cause perceived differences amongst your product and others in the industry, but that this starts to go away and is less effective in the long run. Okay. Now, what advertising does do, it raises the long-run average cost curve for a firm. If they have to advertise to produce the same amount of output, they're going to have higher costs because of the cost of producing the good plus an advertising cost on top. So here, this would be the long-run average cost curve for a firm without advertising. If they advertise, it's going to boost this long-run average cost curve up. So they are going to produce output at a higher long-run average cost than a perfectly competitive firm, which would operate maybe down here on this blue curve, LR ATC1, and the monopolistically competitive firm will operate on the green one, LR ATC2. The difference in cost, you go straight up, would be due to advertising and possibly some other things, but advertising in general. Okay. Now, how does a firm decide how much output to produce? All firms are profit maximizers in the neoclassical model, and they produce output up to the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. You have to have that memorized, okay? Marginal revenue, the change in total revenue for a 1 unit increase in output would have to be equal to the marginal cost, which is the change in total cost for that same 1 unit increase in output. So here, just like with a monopoly, we got a downward sloping demand curve. It would be flatter than a monopolist. A monopolist demand curve might look like something like this if this industry were monopolized. You have the marginal revenue curve. It's this burnt orange curve here. It's always less than demand because to sell more output, a monopolistically competitive firm has to decrease its price because all units of output sell at the same price. So therefore, this marginal revenue curve is the burnt orange one beneath the demand curve, always downward sloping. It intersects the marginal cost curve, which is this J-shaped curve, at one point. That point determines how much output the firm produces. So these two curves, the burnt orange marginal revenue curve and the blue-green marginal cost curve, intersect at 4 units of output. So this firm, to maximize its profit or minimize its losses, right, they're profit maximizers, will produce 4 units of output. To find out the price that they'll charge, you take that 4 units of output, trace it up to the demand curve and go across. So this firm will produce 4 units of output and charge a price of $20 a piece for those units of output. We can figure out total revenue because it's price times quantity. So the price we go up is $20 times across the 4 units of output we produce, this firm will sell $80 worth of output. That's its total revenue. Now, if we want to figure out cost, total cost, we trace that unit of output up to this green average total cost curve. You see the green one that's different from marginal cost, which is blue-green. So we trace $4 up to the average total cost curve and then go across. And we're going to call that $12. Looks a little higher than that. We'll call it $13. Okay? So this firm produces units of output on average at a cost of $13 times the 4 units of output. 4 times 13 is $52. So they sell $80 worth of output. That's their total revenue. It costs them $52 to produce that output. This box here is the total cost box. The area of that box is equal to the average total cost at 4 units of output, $13, times the 4 units of output. 4 times 13 is 52. So $80 minus $52, the area of this smaller box. This little box above it is total profit. 80 minus 52 is a total of $28 in profit. The difference between $20 in price, $13 in average total cost is 7. They produce 4 units of output. The area of this box is 7 times 4, $28. Okay? And we know this firm is making a profit, and this is a short-run profit, because price is above average total cost. Okay. Now, the minimum profit, if you'll remember from chapter 7, is normal profit, is the minimum amount of profit that will keep a firm in the market, and that is a 0 economic profit. Now, in the long run, a perfectly competitive firm will not make a long-run profit, and that is because of the relative easy entry and easy exit feature in this market. When an economic profit is made, that's like a light. And think of firms as bugs, okay? If a firm is making a profit, there's light showing in that market. And other firms, like mosquitoes or bugs, will be drawn into that market away from industries where they aren't making profit, where there is no light, okay? As these new firms enter the market, that decreases demand for an individual firm's output. Okay? Reduces market demand, reduces the demand for other firms in that market, and that causes the price that they charge to decrease. As the price charged decreases, as more firms enter the market, that causes profits in those markets to decrease. And this process will stop when all of the little bugs have the light covered and there's no extra light out there for another firm. And in that case, all firms in the market would be making a normal economic profit. And there's no light shining out to attract bugs from firms from other industries. Okay. If a firm is losing money in a monopolistically competitive market, there's no light for it. So like a bug, it will look around, like a mosquito, look around for a market where there is light, a profit. And firms in losing industries will fly away and go to firms markets where other firms are making money. Say away from the dish soap industry into the laundry soap industry where they might be making a profit. As those bugs fly away, these losses start going away because demand increases, price increases, and these firms are restored to a normal profit. So in the long run, no monopolistically competitive firm will make an economic profit. All firms in that industry in the long run, just like perfect competition, will make a normal or zero economic profit. I'll leave that up there for you. That's basically what I just explained. And here's what it looks like. In the long run, the demand curve will become tangent to some section, some point on this long run average total cost curve. Okay? And the firm will maximize output at a point where its long run average total cost, you can see here in the green, whoops, sorry, go back, is exactly equal to the price that it charges on the market. So if I sell output at an average of $20 a piece, and it costs me on average $20 a piece to produce that output, that firm will make a zero economic profit. You could think of that as maybe just an interest return on waiting for the money. Compare that to perfect competition. That straight marginal revenue curve allows demand, this is marginal revenue equals demand in perfect competition, not monopolistic. We just looked at monopolistic. Where those two intersect, it's on the flat part or the bottom of the long run average total cost curve. Here, the firm makes no economic profit, but produces more output. So that downward sloping demand curve that we see in monopolistic competition, that is due to product differentiation, results in less output being produced in the same industry as a perfectly competitive market would. A perfectly competitive market, they produce 6 units of output. In a monopolistically competitive market, they produce 4 units of output. Another thing to note here, in monopolistic competition, price is higher than marginal cost here. Okay? So this firm is not efficient. The price is greater than marginal cost, right? The marginal cost is down here, right, on that green curve at 4 units of output. The price is higher. That firm is inefficient, okay, according to the neoclassicals. That's another criticism of it. So less output gets produced. A higher price will be charged for that output than under perfect competition, which would be down here around $15. They will produce output at a higher long-run average total cost, and less output will be produced under monopolistic competition than under perfect competition. Okay. See that right here. So that'll be it for this chapter, for this section of chapter 10, and we will come back later. Okay. I'll run through the slides here that I already explained.